How important are roles to a basketball team? Well, if you're the Toronto Raptors, you might be facing that epiphany right now. Vision 6-9 meant positionless basketball, but positionless basketball means blurred lines. Today on Homestand NBA, myself, Noor Zainab, and Justin Pooni will be looking at the Toronto Raptors and their landscape for the next several months. Redick had Fred VanVleet on his podcast. We're going to talk about the point guard position that's kind of left up in the air between three guys who want the ball, and they take on the Knicks tonight. But first, this is what Fred VanVleet had to say on Redick's podcast.
Last year was just kind of free and easy, and I think I was much more a focal point with just on-ball duties and having the ball the whole game and being able to kind of dictate where I wanted to go. And this year that's changed a little bit. So I'm kind of just like, catching the rhythm. So you know how it goes. Some nights the ball finds you, some nights it doesn't.
So essentially what he had to say was he's not maybe happy with his role. He's now not only the second guy that's going to have the ball, he's the third in question and in line. He feels like his usage rate has been off this season compared to last season, and he kind of wants that ball. So Justin, what was your takeaway from that conversation he had with Redick? And does that really amplify the fact that, what we really thought about the whole time, that the Raptors' struggles have to do with something that's happening off the court?
Yeah, I mean, he mentioned how, like you said, I said in the clip, like last year he had the ball in his hands a lot, and now he's playing more off ball. And he had his best year with the ball in his hands last year, and he probably feels that I need the ball in my hands more to, not only for me to be successful, but the team to be successful because they're having a bad year. That was the biggest takeaway, that he talked about how his role has changed. And he also mentioned a bad year for me is 18-6, kind of throwing out that subtle jab that, hey, I might be playing my worst basketball in my career with this role that I've been in, but I'm still averaging 18-6.
Yeah, he's like, imagine if I had the ball, how much would I be averaging?
Exactly. So when I look at Fred VanVleet, and I've said this a billion times before, he can play on my team any day. His mentality, his toughness, his leadership, that to me, he can be on my team any day of the week. With that being said, though, his game does have some limitations, right? And you're seeing that. I don't think Fred VanVleet is the sole reason the Toronto Raptors are struggling, and I don't think him not having the ball in his hands is conducive to them losing. I just think this team in general, just like you said, the whole Vision 6-9 thing, it just never worked from the start. And I think when you look at it, I would actually put the ball back in Fred VanVleet's hands more, to be honest with you.
Really?
Right? Because it's clearly not working what they're doing this year, right? Why not go back to what worked last year before he got hurt? Now, he did get hurt last year, at the end of last year, and you saw in the playoffs he didn't really have the best playoffs.
But that was the year he got the All-Star nod, and it was also the year that Scottie Barnes got Rookie of the Year.
Right. And
so some good things were happening.
And like I said, I don't understand why the Raptors continuously want to, the fan base and people always want to put the ball in Scottie Barnes, his hands, and him be the point guard, right? I just don't think that's what his game should be predicated on. It's putting too much pressure on a young player that already we've seen this year has had ups and downs, and he's been very inconsistent, right? Maybe down the line in his career he can develop into that, but at this point in time where Scottie Barnes is in his development, don't throw extra pressure on a kid like that. Put the ball in Fred VanVleet's hands. He's a smart player. Nick Nurse has the trust in him. He plays him all the time, right? So, I mean, I would just let Fred VanVleet run the offense again and just see what happens. They have nothing to lose. They're literally in a position where they have nothing to lose because the expectations and the way they've gone up to this season, they're not playing very good basketball, right? So the only way to go is up, right?
It also tells you that maybe positions are important. Maybe
Absolutely.
Every guy on the court should know what his position is and what he's supposed to be doing.
The one thing I'll say about that, though, before you can go back to it, is unless you have certain players that can have the ability to play positionless basketball, like a LeBron, like a Luka, guys that can kind of do everything. If you have a guy like that, then you can play positionless basketball. But the Raptors don't have a guy like that. So maybe you do have to have a certain form of structure in place where there's a chain of command and you run a more conventional offense.
And it's interesting that you mentioned Scottie Barnes going as point guard, because I think the three guys the ball can facilitate through, obviously, Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, who's also showed a really big progress when it comes to his assist making, and obviously Scottie Barnes, who we've seen he's taken a giant leap from last year, where his production offensively isn't the same because he's a lot more passive. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, he can be our point guard, but given his size, given what he's good at, given the fact that he can at will get to the rim. Would you not want someone like that to be aggressive and then pair him with a point guard that can keep him open, get him good looks and good shots, right? But I think at that moment, if you want Freddie to be your point guard, I've watched Fred since the beginning, since he got drafted, since he came to Toronto. I've been watching him. And ever since I've been watching him to this day, I just think Fred VanVleet is a shooting guard. I don't think he's a point guard. I think his best role on that team is to be a catch and shoot guy. But I will say, if he can somehow pass first, become a point guard that passes first, that gets his teammates open, that's looking to win the... I'm not saying he doesn't want to win the basketball game, because who doesn't want to win the basketball game, right? But it's more so about having the vision to say, okay, I'll take a night off, but I will make Scotty feast. I will make Pascal feast.
Right. Now, I understand exactly what you're saying. I believe that you need a true... I'm full agrees with you that you need a true point guard. But the thing is, the NBA today, right? You look at it, you look at the point guards in the league, a lot of them are just strictly bucket getters now, right? There's no more traditional point guards. There's like Tyrese Halliburton, Chris Paul, like those pass first, true floor general type.
But then if that's the case, that means you need someone on your... You need a lot of good role players on your team who make their
Case in
shots.
point, the Raptors don't have that, right?
Exactly. But that's exactly what. If you want to keep this squad, you have to pair them with the right resources, which is to get a guy who can get them open. But if you're going to have a point guard that's going to want to shoot first, that means now you have to have guys around him that can also make their own shots.
I think, again, the NBA has transformed over the last 15 years where what is the point? The point guards now are just glorified two guards. They're glorified shooting guards now, right? You got Kyrie, James Harden during his peak, Luka now. Well, Luka's kind of an abomination, but like Dame, Steph, right? All these guys, they're strictly scorers first before anything else, right? Yeah, sure, they can facilitate and run the offense, but their main objective is to put the ball in the basket and score, right? That's what they're leaned on to do. And I think that's where you've seen the change in basketball. There's no more guys like Magic or John Stockton, guys that are going to run the offense traditionally, pass the ball up, and shoot second. All these guys now want to shoot first. That's how the NBA is. That's how the game is transitioned to.
I think that's exactly there's nothing wrong with that, because you're right. Like all the great guys who are point guards who like to shoot are going to be on teams like that, and obviously the offense will flow through them. And because they're so efficient at making that shot, it should. It's a matter of who's efficient on your team and also what your team looks like, because. Like we said, the other guys aren't as talented and they don't have the skill sets to go and make that shot. So for them, they're going to need a guy around them that will put them in the position to open up. Is Freddie that guy right now? No, because he holds the ball for 20 seconds and then he passes it out and they check it.
He doesn't touch the ball enough.
Well, but I think we have the eye test here too, right? So we've kind of seen when he has the ball, he's holding on to it. He's the offense is completely stagnant. It's in his hands until the 23-second mark. Then he passes it out to someone in the three. They are taking the most contested shot. And it's going to be chucked, and it's probably not going to go in.
So there's an interesting quote, Chauncey Billups, former point guard. He was more of the traditional point guard too back in the day. And he said that when you look at the numbers from today, if he held the ball for like 15 to 20 seconds, his numbers would be through the roof too, right? That's kind of how it's transformed now. The guy who brings the ball up now holds it for 15, 20 seconds, and then he decides to drive and kick it out for a three-pointer, or he shoots an ISO shot himself. That's just the way the basketball is played now, and it's...
So either now you have to get talent on your squad that's all going to be able to make their own shots, that don't need to be relying on someone to pass the ball to them, or you see the squad that you have, this is the one that you want to roll with, and now you get them the pieces that they need to succeed. Because I think it's very clear, positionless basketball, as great as the idea might be, it's not going to work unless you have the right pieces for it. They can't just be 6'9" guys. They got to have some level of skill set to them as well. And like I said, if that's the route you want to go with, you might have to tweak that a little bit, because, sorry, but you still need a center, and I think even beyond a center, you need a point guard.
Backup point guard.
With this team, the way that it's built, the roster construction, if you want them to succeed, you have to get someone on the squad that will want to make them succeed. And that's when guys like Chris Paul, Kyle Lowry come in, right? Because their main job on that court is to pass first. And that's kind of what I pictured with this Raptors team. But speaking of guys who are supposed to be point guards and who actually like to shoot first, we face off the Knicks tonight.
Jalen Brunson.
The Knicks are in town. They're coming coming off a win over the Spurs. They've won their last 3, and Jalen Brunson had the best game of his career with the Knicks, where he scored 38 points. The Raptors also, they just came back from an OT loss to the Bucks the night before, and I like to think there might be some level of momentum in there because they can see that the effort factor might be contributing to something on the court. Because again, this team is too good for what the hell is happening on that court. And we've seen glimpses of that team somewhere that can defend, that can attack in transition, but doesn't fix your entire problem for sure. But it still makes you a top 6, top 7 team in the NBA.
Pump the brakes on top
7 NBA, okay? They're at least
playing
top
team,
7.
maybe playing team. Right now,
but when they play well together,
the small sample size they have played well this.
But I think that's what tells you, though, that a lot of their off-court issues, because the positionless stuff, are we not sure it's not creating tension between players? They don't trust each other on the court. Like, if you trust each other, you pass the ball, you trust in their ability to make it. But every single one is either scared to take the ball or just wants to shoot themselves.
What's the old saying? Winning cures all, right? Like, when you're winning, everything's roses and peaches and cream, right? But when you're losing, everything comes out.
But I think that's also when you have to keep in mind that there's recency bias to that. When we were winning really well early this season, it was like, wow, this is a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference.
That's what I'm saying.
And then when you get to losing, exactly. But
yeah.
that's when you have to keep in mind that there's still that team in there somewhere that has the ability to win. But it's obviously roster construction, but still a big matter comes into the fact that the effort just isn't there.
Also the offense too. The offenses, we know.
But that's what comes with effort too, right? Like, if you care about the rules.
but it also comes with a certain amount of skill too, I think.
But yeah, but definitely. But at the same time, it's like, I think it kind of falls a little bit on Coach Nurse at the section where you gotta think about, how are you using your players? Are you putting them in the most effective spot for them to win?
Yeah.
I don't think that's.
I think the coaching
properly.
staff and the Raptors need to. They're in a very weird. Like, the roster is very unique and kind of unique construction. We've talked about it so many times. I just don't think they have, like, and maybe it is true what Joel Embiid said. The more that the time goes along, maybe Nick Nurse just cares about stopping your team's best player and doesn't care about winning the game.
That's exactly why we need Sergio and we need Chris Finch back on this team.
Maybe Joel Embiid has some truth to what he was saying. Maybe.
I think we've been saying that this whole time. But the Raptors take on the Knicks tonight at Scotiabank Arena. We will see if they can perhaps get this win. I think they might. Justin, really quickly, do you think they'll be able to? I'm going to give this to them. I think after the momentum.
Go.
Oh, of course you will. That's okay. It's a hater.
Bing bong.
Raptors, prove him wrong and prove me right. And we'll see you next time on Homestand NBA with Jelani on Monday.